In the vast realm of video games, few franchises can claim the enduring popularity and cultural impact of Sonic the Hedgehog. Since his debut in 1991, Sega's Blue Speedster has captivated players of all generations. With his lightning-fast adventures and iconic attitude, and among the myriad entries in the Sonic series, one game stands out as a true love letter to the franchise's rich history: Sonic Generations. Released in 2011 to celebrate Sonic's 20th anniversary, Sonic Generations served as a nostalgic tribute to the past while simultaneously propelling the beloved Hedgehog into a modern era of gaming. Developed by Sonic Team and published by Sega, this game seamlessly blended classic 2D platforming with exhilarating 3D action, delivering a remarkable experience that resonated with fans old and new in an adventure through time and space, honoring the franchise's storied history while introducing thrilling new gameplay mechanics. But Sonic Generations was more than just a stroll down memory lane. It cleverly blended elements from both classic and modern Sonic games, allowing players to experience the best of both worlds. It's common knowledge now, and a practice that was repeated in later games, but the game featured two incarnations of Sonic: the vintage, pixel-perfect, classic Sonic, and the sleek, modern-day Sonic, each representing different eras of the franchise. This duality created a unique dynamic, as players could relish in the nostalgia of side-scrolling platforming or embrace the exhilarating of high-speed 3D acrobatics. Beyond its compelling gameplay, Sonic Generations showcased the evolution of Sonic's universe, with a diverse cast of characters we've all come to know and love, including Tails, Knuckles, and Shadow, as well as the iconic bosses such as Dr. Eggman Robotnik and the menacing Time Eater. The game beautifully captures the essence of Sonic's world. Each level was meticulously designed, paying homage to classic stages from Sonic's past while incorporating modern sensibilities, resulting in an engaging and visually stunning experience. Moreover, Generations received widespread critical acclaim upon its release, garnering praise for its tight controls, exhilarating level design, and its ability to resonate with the fans of all ages. It remains a testament to the enduring appeal of the Sonic franchise and its ability to adapt and captivate players across multiple generations. So join me as I revisit this timeless adventure that is Sonic Generations. Prepare to embark on a thrilling journey through time where nostalgia and innovation collide, and Sonic's legacy is celebrated in all its glory. Let's rev up those iconic red shoes and race headlong to the captivating world of Sonic Generations. So like I said, the game received generally positive reviews from both critics and fans who praised its nostalgic appeal, tight controls, and impressive level design. Critics lauded Generations for successfully blending the best elements of the classic and modern Sonic gameplay. The game's presentation and visuals were highly praised, with many noting the attention to detail in the redesigned stages from the past Sonic titles. The classic levels appealed to longtime fans of the series, invoking a strong sense of nostalgia, while the modern levels showcased Sonic's speed and dynamic gameplay. Critics also commended the tight controls, which were deemed responsive and intuitive, allowing players to effortlessly navigate the fast-paced levels. I know I keep mentioning the tight controls, and dude, after playing Forces and Frontiers prior to this game, Sonic felt great to control, especially classic Sonic. Despite the positive reception, some critics did have minor complaints about Sonic Generations. Some argued that the game relied too heavily on nostalgia, and did not offer much innovation in terms of gameplay mechanics. They felt that while the game excelled at capturing the essence of the past Sonic titles, it did not push the series forward in any capacity. Additionally, a few critics found some levels to be overly reliant on trial and error, leading to occasional frustration. But come on, that's just a formula for a good Sonic game. Honestly, my only real complaint was the story, as I don't mind the nostalgia pandering too much, especially given the time of its release and what came before it. And honestly, these criticisms were outweighed by the overwhelming appreciation for Sonic Generation amongst its fans. The game was praised for successfully revitalizing the series and providing an enjoyable experience for both longtime fans and newcomers alike. It was seen as a love letter to Sonic's history, a testament to the enduring appeal of the franchise, and a promising sign for its future. But as far as my personal experience goes, well, as I've previously mentioned in the series, this game happened to come out during my hiatus from gaming that occurred during my later college years and early career life. After Sonic and the Secret Rings, I still kept up with the Sonic franchise, but didn't really actually play the games. I vividly remember the memes and backlash for the Werehog, and I may or may not have partaken in the laughs at the trailers for Black Knight, and I think I was at that point that I completely disconnected. Colors, Generations, and Lost World, and boom, were very much lost upon me on the time of their release. Sure, I might have seen a Reddit post or screenshot, but I was very much disconnected. In fact, it wasn't until I got into the whole YouTube binge-watching lifestyle that I saw various YouTubers praising Colors and Generations and saying there were high points in the series. And this was in 2017 or 2018, well after Generations had come out. In any case, despite being far removed from the release, I eventually got a pretty good understanding of how the fanbase felt about Sonic Generations. And while I was dying to play this game, I wanted to save my first playthrough for you lovely folks. What you're watching today is not only my retrospective of Sonic Generations, but also a personal journey of what is now one of my favorite Sonic games. I figure it's best to start with the weakest part of the game so I don't end the video off too negatively. The game begins with Sonic along with his friends celebrating his birthday. However, their festivities are interrupted by the appearance of a mysterious creature known as the Time Eater. The Time Eater possesses the ability to manipulate time and tears a hole through space-time continuum, causing Sonic's friends to be scattered across different time periods. Sonic himself is transported to the White Space, a timeless dimension. In the White Space, Sonic encounters a younger version of himself from the past, referred to as Classic Sonic. Together, they form a partnership and set out on a mission to restore time, rescue their friends, and defeat the Time Eater. To achieve this, Sonic and Classic Sonic must travel through various zones, which are inspired by iconic stages from Sonic's past. The zones are all divided into two versions, the classic version and the modern version, representing different eras of Sonic history. And the players are to control both Sonics, each with their unique gameplay mechanics. As Sonic and Classic Sonic progress through the zones, they encounter their friends who have been trapped in specific time periods. These friends include the usuals like Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and the others. Sonic and Classic Sonic must work together to free their friends and reunite the fractured timeline. Throughout their journey, Sonic and Classic Sonic must collect the Chaos Emeralds. The Emeralds are vital in their battle against the Time Eater and obtained by completing special challenges and missions within the zones. As the story unfolds, Sonic and Classic Sonic learn that the Time Eater is being controlled by two powerful entities, Dr. Eggman, Sonic's long-standing nemesis, and an older version of Dr. Robotnik, Eggman's past self. The two villains have joined forces to harness the power of time itself for their malicious plans. Sonic and Classic Sonic confront the Time Eater in an epic final battle. Utilizing their combined speed and skills, along with the Chaos Emeralds they have gathered, they engage in a high-stakes battle to restore time and defeat the Time Eater once and for all. With the power of friendship and determination, Sonic and Classic Sonic emerge victorious, restoring the timeline and rescuing their friends from different time periods. They bid farewell to each other, acknowledging the importance of their partnership and strength they found in their unity. In the game's conclusion, Sonic and his friends resume their birthday celebration, grateful for the restored world and ready to face new adventures that lie ahead. Now, this might not sound quite as bad as I'm making it out to be, given the other Sonic stories of the time, but the reality is Sonic Generations very much played it safe in the story department. This is where I remind you guys that this is a retrospective in reverse, so I'm doing my best to strictly compare this game to what came after it rather than what came before it, to get a different view of certain aspects of the game, rather than what YouTubers have rinsed and repeated for over a decade at this point. Frontiers, and even Forces, tried to add a little bit of gravity in their stories, and I thought they were better for it, even if they were being a bit cheesy at times. Sonic Boom could have been a Saturday morning kids cartoon with the plot they put together, and while the characters in Lost World were disturbingly generic, I genuinely think the story in that game was more entertaining than what we got in Generations. I think the idea was good, but the execution was poor and quite frankly kind of bland. But that might be due to the whole white space thing, and its presentation making the game seem duller than it was. Keep in mind, I'm a sucker for over-the-top cringy anime style stories of Sonic of days past, just to give you an idea of where my thoughts lie. In any case, the story isn't remotely a highlight, but it's nowhere near offensive enough to really affect my opinion of this game. I've said this before, but I'm very much a gameplay first type of person. A good story is a nice bonus to a good game, but a bad story doesn't ruin an experience for me if the gameplay is solid. Now, with that unplanned segue, let's move on. Ooh boy, where do I begin? Players alternate between controlling these two versions of Sonic throughout the game. Classic Sonic's gameplay harkens back to the original Sonic games from the Sega Genesis era. He features side-scrolling levels with a focus on platforming, precise jumps, and maintaining momentum, with the 2D momentum gameplay being an absolute highlight of this game for me, since it was lost in pretty much all of the games that followed. Classic Sonic relies on his spin dash ability to build up speed and defeat enemies by jumping on them. The levels designed for Classic Sonic genuinely evoke a sense of nostalgia and capture the essence of the classic Sonic games with their loop-de-loop springboards and challenging obstacles. On the other hand, modern Sonic's gameplay represents the more recent 3D iterations of the franchise. Modern Sonic's levels are characterized by high-speed sections, rail grinding, and expansive environments. He possesses a variety of abilities such as the homing attack, boost, and drift. Modern Sonic's gameplay mechanics emphasize fluidity and exhilarating speed with players dashing through levels, performing tricks, and taking advantage of various paths and shortcuts available. In addition to the core gameplay mechanics, Sonic Generations introduces various power-ups and collectibles. Red star rings are scattered throughout the levels and serve as a collectible challenging for players. They encourage exploration and mastery of the levels. Something I haven't quite put in the time and effort on, but I will inevitably come back to. The level design in Sonic Generations is meticulously crafted, with each stage offering a unique and visually stunning environment. The levels are designed to maximize Sonic's speed and agility while providing a sense of challenge and excitement. They feature branching paths, alternate routes, and hidden secrets, allowing players to approach the levels in different ways, rewarding exploration. The controls in Sonic Generations are generally responsive and intuitive, providing a satisfying sense of control and precision. Sonic's movements feel smooth, and the gameplay mechanics allow players to effortlessly navigate through the levels, whether it's classic Sonic's precise platforming or modern Sonic's fast-paced, high-speed sections. I can't stress this enough. Classic Sonic's momentum in 2D is everything in this game. I've alluded to this in previous videos, but I think it's worth discussing once again. Many 3D Sonic games, I believe starting from Colors and running all the way through Frontiers, have included 2D sections of gameplay. But those 2D sections of gameplay never felt like fun physics-based controls of the classic era. Frontiers I could somewhat forgive because in general the cyberspace levels weren't the focus of the game. And Boom had those 2D sections, but that is not really a Sonic game. Lost World's 2D sections legitimately controlled like New Super Mario Bros. With the additional ability of walking on walls. Which leads me to Forces, the only game following Generations that actually featured classic Sonic. Those of you that watched my Forces video will know that I don't think it's that bad of a game. I actually kind of liked it. It's not great, but not nearly as deserving of the beating it's gotten. Anyway, an often discussed aspect of both Forces and Generations is the fact that many people don't understand the point of having 2D sections with modern Sonic when there's a plethora of 2D levels featuring classic Sonic. It's often seen as redundant and causes people to question if these 3D platformers could be considered 2D platformers due to the amount of 2D gameplay in the games. The issue is this completely ignores the fact that classic and modern Sonic have completely different movesets. Controlling modern Sonic in 2D is not equal to controlling classic Sonic in 2D, because modern Sonic has a more diverse and exciting moveset than classic. Playing modern Sonic in 2D is just that. It's playing with modern Sonic on a 2D plane. The problem is when you switch to classic Sonic, it greatly highlights the simplicity of how he controls and really makes his level feel mundane in comparison. At least, that's how I felt in Forces when I played as classic Sonic. In Generations, that wasn't even remotely an issue. Classic Sonic was just about as fun to control as modern Sonic, because when I held down a spin dash and I flung myself through a ramp, I believe I can fly. And man, did it feel good. So basically, you have modern Sonic in 3D, modern Sonic in 2D, and classic Sonic in 2D. A simple game involving classic Sonic in 3D would be fun. That's kind of what I felt like Lost World was, or at least would have been if it had any sense of momentum-based physics applied to its controls. All in all, the gameplay was very much the highlight of this game, and that was enough for me to absolutely fall in love with this title. You just know a game is good when I split gameplay and level design up into two different sections in my videos. While I'm not going to do a full breakdown of every stage and its strengths and weaknesses, I felt it was worth noting that while all of the level themes were rehashed and remade to some extent, there was a good amount of effort put into each one of them to make them feel a bit more modernized. They easily could have slapped a modern facelift to some of the 2D levels, but instead they added various effects in the presentation and little extra tidbits to allow it to feel like a unique experience. And that's not even considering the fact that they made 3D renditions of traditionally 2D stages, as well as 2D renditions of traditionally 3D stages. A lot of this game felt surreal in that regard. The nostalgia pandering was excellently handled. And while I think it is an easy criticism to say that this game felt uninspired because the level themes and designs were based off of a pre-existing template, I think that pre-existing template allowed the team the extra time to polish up so much of both the level design as well as the general presentation of the stages. An effort you don't often see put into the levels in Sonic games. Like, think of the title screen, the story, and the main overworld of this title. Or even the extra required side missions that are forced upon you to complete the story that are pretty lame since their only purpose is to increase playtime to get the final boss. where they should have been optional bonuses in post-game content. Imagine the lack of effort put into those details, likely due to a time crunch to hit a release date. A song as old as time with the Sonic franchise. If it wasn't for the pre-existing templates for the stages in the game, those jarring shortcuts taken might have been the same mediocre quality efforts placed into the gameplay and level design. And even with all of those templates, they still couldn't make this game longer than a few hours. But anyway, I'm delving too deep into the politics. What I'm trying to highlight is why the stages and gameplay in this game are so good compared to the other Sonic titles. Every mainline Sonic game basically got one stage. Those stages are split into two zones, a classic zone which is considered easier, and a modern zone. Here's my quick run through of those stages chosen by Sonic Team. Sonic 1's Green Hill Zone is an obvious choice. I don't really think I need to break down why I agree with this decision. It's a faithful recreation in 2D and an awesome modernization in 3D. Keep in mind when this game came out, I'm pretty sure we hadn't seen a proper Green Hill Zone in a 3D platformer before, so a lot of the burnout from the later titles didn't yet exist. And everything I just said about Sonic 1's Green Hill can also be applied to Sonic 2's Chemical Plant. I don't think it's really worth explaining why I think that was the right choice. Also, while this video isn't about the 3DS version, I think it's worth a mention that on Generation's 3DS they got Casino Night instead, which also makes a good amount of sense. I'd have personally given it to Metropolis Zone, but I like Chaos. Sonic 3K went with Sky Sanctuary, and that's probably where I get my first reservation. In fairness, I think they did an excellent job implementing it into this game, but I also think they chose it because it had one of the more easier and more linear level layouts to reimagine. The cynic in me believes they specifically chose it for that reason. Anyway, I'd have taken Angel Island, Hydrocity, Ice Cap, or Mushroom Hill if it was my choice. And the 3DS version did get Mushroom Hill, so there's that. Now, onto the modern side of things. From SA1, they chose Speed Highway. A totally acceptable choice, as it's probably one of the best levels in SA1 and pretty iconic. I personally have gone with Emerald Coast, and lo and behold, the 3DS version got that iconic opening level. But in my defense, my city theme appetite was fulfilled in the stage that followed. I promise you all, one day I will discuss Sonic Adventure 2, and I will be nothing but a blubbering mess during that video. City Escape is everything to me. I'm not even exaggerating when I say Sonic Adventure 2 is on my Mount Rushmore of video games. And obviously, since the console game got Sonic's opening level, the 3DS version got Shadow's opening level of Radical Highway, which is probably the second most iconic stage in Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Heroes chose Seaside Hill. Probably the same choice I'd have gone with if I was looking to pick something more iconic. It might also explain why Emerald Coast wasn't chosen in Sonic 1. Also, I could be wrong in saying this, but I think Sonic Heroes was more forgettable than pretty much any other game from that era. It wasn't as hated or as loved as other games leading up to Sonic 06, so it makes sense to me that the first level in that game would be the most iconic. Crisis City was brought in from Sonic 06, and honestly, not only do I think this is one of the best levels in the game, at least a 3D rendition of it, but for Sonic Team to completely stare into their most infamous game by choosing the most infamous level is something I can totally respect. Especially when they made just enough changes and spruced it up to the point to make it pretty darn good. Rooftop Run from Unleashed. I mean really, could they have picked anything else? Maybe since the game wasn't that far removed from the release of Unleashed they could have chosen something a bit more obscure, but Rooftop Run is generally the first level thought of from Sonic Unleashed. And it'd be madness to not choose this stage just for the music alone. From Sonic Colors they brought in Planet Wisp, which I understand, especially considering this game came out a year before Generations, so they could get a bit creative with people's memories. And they probably didn't want to have too many of the selection of stages just being the opening level of each game. Because I'd personally have gone with Tropical Resort. Not because I think it's a better zone, but because it's what comes to mind when I think of Colors. Likewise with Starlight Carnival. Am I wrong here? Is Planet Wisp more iconic? I'm not sure. But I will say the 3DS version once again did get the stage I'd pick, that being Tropical Resort. Maybe I should cover that game eventually. Y'all remind me to do a Sonic handheld series at some point. Not now, I got other things I want to do first, but eventually. There are also the boss battles that I'll do a quick fire through, but you have Sonic 2's Death Egg Robot, Perfect Chaos from Adventure, Egg Dragoon from Unleashed, Metal Sonic from CD, Shadow from SA2, and Silver from 06. All of them definitely check that iconic and memorable box, so I have no comments about them. And well, even if I did complain about something, it probably came up in the 3DS version because that had Big Arm from Sonic 3, Bio Lizard from SA2, and Egg Emperor from Heroes. And finally, the final boss is the Time Eater. On one hand, the Time Eater boss fight is visually impressive and grand in scale. It takes place in a surreal space, filled with swirling time rifts, and features an epic showdown against the colossal Time Eater itself. The cinematic presentation accompanied by dynamic music creates a sense of intensity and excitement. However, I have some issues with the actual gameplay mechanics of the Time Eater boss fight. It can feel repetitive and overly reliant on quick time events. The fight consists of patterns where you must dodge incoming obstacles and attack specific weak points during QTE sequences. It honestly feels unintuitive and disruptive to the flow of the fight, and it just feels like it lacks complexity and depth compared to the other boss encounters in the game. It's just too straightforward and not as challenging or engaging as I'd have liked, especially considering the build-up and anticipation leading to the final battle. Like I said, it's a visually impressive spectacle, but the actual gameplay mechanics are lacking in depth and excitement. Visually, Sonic Generations features vibrant, gorgeous graphics that bring the various levels to life. Each stage is designed with meticulous attention to detail, capturing the distinct art styles and environments from Sonic's history. The classic levels faithfully recreated the pixelated charm of the original games, while the modern levels boast impressive 3D environments with dynamic lighting and special effects. The visuals are generally well polished and contribute to the game's immersive and nostalgic atmosphere. And the sounds? Come on, it's Sonic. The sound design in Sonic Generations is a standout aspect of the game's presentation. The soundtrack includes a combination of classic tracks remastered from that original game and new compositions that capture the essence of Sonic's adventurous spirit. The music is energetic, catchy, and perfectly complements the fast-paced gameplay. Like I said, it's Sonic. Even if you hate the game, you'll be getting some of the best music from a series of great music. Also, I want to acknowledge the cinematics and cutscenes that enhance the storytelling and character interactions. The cinematics are visually impressive, the dynamic camera angles and fluid animations. They effectively convey the sense of urgency and adventure with the game's narrative. And the cutscenes also provide moments of humor, especially between Eggman and Robotnik, and showcasing the friendly banter between Sonic and his friends. Overall, Generations is a polished and cohesive visual and auditory experience. I guess this is usually the part where I squeeze in some last second thoughts that I forgot to discuss earlier. There are moments in the game, specifically in the 2D sections, that the camera angles change ever so slightly. It's not a huge difference to the experience, but it ever so slightly highlights the amount of detail the devs were able to put into this game, despite the inevitable time crunch, because the stage themes and designs started from a template. And in a lot of games, that might not matter so much. But in a speed-based platformer that often sees dull moments that are nothing more than moving fast and going straight, spectacle means everything. This series is at its best when not only the speed and platforming are balanced out, but when the spectacle is a focus as well. Aside from that, I really wish there were more levels in this game, and that it didn't have artificially extended playtime with moments that locked you out of progression unless you went back to another stage. The same thing happened in Lost World, and it's jarring to see games that released in the 2010s use such a weak tactic to increase playtime. The sad thing is, I know if Sonic Team had decided to include more stages, the game would probably have been worse off for it. You could see it in the later levels. Many of the modern Sonic stages included more and more 2D sections with fewer branches. And call me a conspiracist, but I think they specifically chose some levels in the games for that reason. Planet Wisp and Sky Sanctuary come to mind. In a lot of ways, I'm glad the game is as short as it is because there are a lot of shortcomings. The UI interface, the artificial padding, the story, the final boss battle, etc. I can only imagine how much worse off the game would have been if they had more stages to focus on. We're just lucky that what was given to us was for the most part solid, both from a gameplay and presentation angle. Now, as far as this retrospective in reverse goes, I still enjoyed Frontiers more, but it's not really fair to compare an open world 20+ hour adventure to a short 4-hour game. Sure, Generations is largely better than Frontiers' of cyberspace levels, but Frontiers offered me so much more enjoyment despite its many shortcomings. It probably goes without saying, but Generations also was better than Forces. However, I will argue for as long as I need to that Forces is not a horrible game. Many of the flaws and complaints people have with Forces exist in Generations as well. Generations does a better job having levels that are more dynamic, and it does a significantly better job with classic Sonic sections. And those shortcomings that existed in Forces should definitely be scrutinized. However, if Forces could have been an 8 out of 10 if it fixed those shortcomings, those complaints should have brought it down to a 6, not a 2. Forces has more stages with more variety, a better story, actual original levels and themes, and the ability to create your own character. And I know there are criticisms to all of those things I just mentioned. They're not flawless, but they are aspects of Forces that I can praise more than I could in Generations. But the reality is, the only hate Forces should get is the fact that it came out later and was not better or even on par with its predecessor in its gameplay. It's still a Sonic game worth playing. It's not a broken mess like 06 was. It's not a fake Sonic game like Boom was. I played Forces and Generations for the first time in the span of a month, and thought they were both enjoyable experiences, with Generations being the better experience. And while I found plenty of joy in what was provided in Sonic Lost World, and have revisited the game since making my retrospective and enjoyed it even more, the boost formula is something I personally think is much better. It just feels like a more serious AAA style of game than Lost World, which is great for me because up next is Sonic Colors, so I can enjoy some similar gameplay at the very least and have a very fresh feel in mind. But listen, I don't want to make this conclusion sound like I don't think Generations is amazing, because it is, and I'm comfortably placing it in my top 3 3D Sonic games for now. I just think that the series as a whole doesn't have to be so hyperbolic in both its love and hatred by the fans. Generations is not a 10 out of 10 masterpiece of a game, and Forces isn't a 1 out of 10 death of a franchise. They're closer than y'all make them out to be. And if you can stomach what I just said, then like and subscribe so you can know when my next video comes out. And feel free to leave a comment, we can argue about why I'm wrong. But regardless, thank you so much for sticking it out to the end of my video. Thanks for watching. Dean, out.